And we are back here on FOX59 tonight. We're having a good commercial break and some good conversation, which we're going to bring you into now. Back here with Samantha Douglas and Whitley Yates. There is some news that has been made just today regarding the death penalty. Now, in Indiana, and ladies, let me know if anything has changed. Abortion is illegal, but the death penalty is still on the books.
Oh yeah.
And so that's a juxtaposition because you have a guy who killed a police officer back a Beech Grove police officer here in Central Indiana back in 2000 in 2000 25 years ago. Benjamin Ritchie is set to be executed in Michigan City at the state prison, my hometown, on the 20th. And the issue here is it has been deemed that when this happened, when he was younger, that he had the mental capacity of a teenager. And so in this state, you don't execute with capital punishment minors. And his mental capacity is not that of an adult. And is more in line with having some sort of special needs. That is also a person that the state does not execute. That said, he is clemency boards were going speaking on his behalf, saying that hey, this isn't this. We're not saying this person should get out of jail, but this isn't a person that we should put to death. That said, the governor has just issued a statement saying, after carefully reviewing the unanimous recommendation from the state parole board, I have decided to allow the execution of Benjamin Ritchie to proceed as planned for May 20th. Again, this comes after 2000 when he shot and killed a Beech Grove police officer named William Tony. That was September 29th. That started as a police chase and then obviously went south from there. What's your reaction to this, Whitley? I'm going to start with you because, again, this is your party who says the party of life and no abortions and can't take life. That's a God decision. But literally, the paragraph I just read is the governor making a decision about somebody's life. What's your thought?
So it's really interesting that you say this because in the Republican Party platform in Indiana, it values the sanctity of innocent life. And that word is in the
Okay.
platform. Now, there is a spectrum of conservatism when it comes to this issue. Some people are pro life for innocent life, and others are pro life womb to tomb. I am a womb to tumor, meaning that it is not our place, or I don't believe it's our place to be taking the lives of those, no matter how heinous the crime is. However, a lot of Republicans believe that it is the innocent life that should be protected. And unfortunately, this man is not innocent. Now, Braun making this decision and deciding to go with the parole board and not grant clemency and allow this to go on is actually a very big deal. Why? There was a stay of executions for quite some time during Holcomb's administration because they weren't able to get in the necessary chemicals in order to perform this in a way that was constitutionally correct. And so for so long, we did not have any executions. And then right towards the end of Holcomb's administration, we had one. Now, here we are, only months into Bronze, and there is yet another one. And so, him deciding that he's not granting any clemency and allowing this to happen basically puts a very, very strong message out there, not only to those that are facing, you know, the death penalty, but also to prosecutors and judges that are sentencing people. And I do find it to be very politically beneficial for Braun to do this because, in this case in particular, this man killed a police officer. And when Braun was in Senate, he did propose a bill and it made a lot of the police officers upset. So, building that support and making sure that they feel supported, not only in their line of duty, but when those come against them and end up killing one of them, is very important for him politically.
Sam, what you think?
So it would have been, I think it would have been upsetting for Bronze Base to let off somebody that even in like the titles of some of these articles is a cop killer,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that so that would have been tough. I know I hate to make a conversation about somebody's life about politics, but ultimately, I think, especially a politician like Brian, is going to consider something like that. I think it's interesting that he said after careful consideration when this came out very fast
Mhm.
after that vote. So I don't know how careful of consideration that was. I think this was a decision that was made really quickly, actually. And I think that's messed up because, yeah, I think I'm the same way as Whitley in that I don't think we should be taking folks' lives. Especially not. I thought it was interesting when they were highlighting the fact that the jury at the time did not even have the information that he was impaired mentally at all with fetal alcohol syndrome, or that he was registering as like a teenager in mentality or his ability to make decisions and things like that. I think this is a case that should open up doors for us to talk about what that means, to make sure that moving forward, these kind of cases, that this isn't the case. That if somebody has any kind of mental impairment in any kind of way, that should be shared in that case. Those jurors should have a chance to consider that when they're talking about, what happens with folks, their verdicts and their sentencing, right? But in this, again, I wouldn't have chose to allow him to be executed. I think it's horrific that we still do this. At the same time, with Brian, yeah, I couldn't imagine him doing anything else though. If I'm
Mhm.
being honest, I think, and I don't think it was careful consideration. I think they just put those words in there.
How
I
dare
don't think
she?
it was. It wasn't.
No, I think,
It
but
wasn't. He just
in fairness, is it Braun's responsibility or is it the General Assembly's responsibility to change this law?
No, a 100% fact, and that's what I'm bringing up. That this is something that needs to be changed, specifically because this is something that in this case specifically, I think maybe some of the concerns, if you're Braun, could also be like, are we setting a precedent to let people off or not get a harsh enough punishment for such a crime as killing a police officer? Because we all know that they, that's like the worst thing you could do, right? But I think in this case, the details are so specific that you wouldn't have to worry about that. I don't think he would have set a precedent with this in saying that, considering what he's been through with the fetal alcohol syndrome, considering that although he was 20, they actually have proof, testing saying that he was registering as a teenager and his decision making abilities. I think all of those things should have been factored in, and this could have been corrected at this phase by our governor. Yes, I think the reason why we have balances in that way is so that they can correct each other. This is a miss, legislatively, that needs to be fixed. But then on the flip side, I think this was an opportunity for Brian to say, hey, this is something that should have been considered. And we're not saying like, that's a big point too, is they're not saying let him out. They're not saying like just wipe away his sentencing, right? They're just saying he should have life in prison rather than being executed. And that should be considered. And I think definitely, even there should have been more time on that kind of
Mhm.
decision.
I mean,
Like,
it's been
but
25 years, and I'll
no,
say
I'm talking about in Braun's decision post that vote.
this is what I will say. If I believe that Braun already knew his stance and the administration
Mhm.
knew where they wanted to be. And
Mhm.
I think that they would have reconsidered had the parole board not been in alignment with their decision.
Yeah.
But we cannot utilize some of these conditions to say that people didn't know what they were doing. If you play stupid games, you may win that stupid prize. Now, I'm sitting here as someone that was born with fetal alcohol syndrome. So I'm aware of how those types of things impact your behavior and your impulse.
Mhm.
At the same time, I'm not on high speed chases shooting at cops either.
I mean, that's
Now,
not.
n-
You
I mean,
can't.
I'm no,
You can't say
I'm
that.
I
You
am
can't say that
this
because
is
you
what
don't
I'm
know the severity of his. You can't
it's
make that
not
comparison.
I'll say this. I have fetal alcohol syndrome and was born drug addicted. I don't know the severity, but I know he wasn't born drug addicted as well. But what I will
Do we
say
know that?
is it wasn't in any of the articles and it wasn't in the case.
I don't know that we know that.
But I think what we should be looking at is the way in which we, those elected
Mhm.
judges, are
Mhm.
deciding to render this result because
Yeah.
the jury just says guilty or not guilty, and the judge is the one who decides its
Right.
execution.
Right.
So in the grand scheme, you have multiple levels of government working with each other. So you have the General Assembly that could change the law and only have life in prison in the state of Indiana. That has not been done. You have judges that can give you life in prison, multiple life sentences. That was not done. So it's all working together the way that it is supposed to be. If we don't want this happening in Indiana, then let's change the law. If we don't change the law, then you have to look at the judges that are assigning these executions. And I think in the grand scheme, if I was in his position, this was done before me. It was here long before me, and we just reinitiated because now we do have what is necessary. I would follow the law. And so, even though I'm personally against it, this is not about what is personal. It's a policy decision.
25 years later, with how advanced science is becoming, I think everything is becoming a level of complexity that we haven't seen before. And so I think as we evolve, we do need to make sure that our legislation and the way that we handle these kind of cases should evolve too. And what I'm saying is Braun could have used this moment to help us evolve in that way. Like, this is the perfect example of why this legislation needs to be changed. And he could have made a statement in that way by choosing to not allow him to get executed and just, remain in prison. But
Democrats
again,
always trying to save
it's
people.
not our it's not our I mean,
The Maryland man.
I don't take offense to that. I don't take
They
offense
always
to
trying
that.
to
I don't have a problem with feeling like we should save folks. But at the same time, yeah, I think obviously Governor Braun is within his, power to do so, and that's what he chose to do.
Well, and you
And there's
mentioned
an
that,
appeals process.
but
This man could have gone through
but we've seen in
if
other
there was new
states,
evidence.
this case isn't like the others where you talked about the technology where it's up for debate if this
Right.
person did it.
Right.
That's not being alleged here, but we've
No.
seen in several other states, including when people, I believe, at least one of them, still they got a federal death sentence, and it
Yeah.
happened here in Indiana,
Mhm.
where it has been people coming out the woodwork to say this person didn't do it. I didn't have all the information. We've seen it time and time again, and those people still have been executed by the government. So this one is interesting, but I think there have been even more. There have been even
Yeah.
more situations where it was
Right.
like
Yeah.
everything is pointing to saying don't do this, and it's still been done.
Yes.
Let's switch real quick. We talked about juxtapositions in that one. How about another juxtaposition? And that is, at last check, deportations, we're doing that. Bringing in refugees, we're not doing that. That is at least until this week, when 59 white South Africans were given refugee status by the Trump administration, the same administration that has said no more refugees, no more coming across the southern border. That's what people are doing. They're running for their lives, trying to come to America for safety. Nevertheless, they said, nope, nobody else is coming in. We can't sustain this. There's too many people, X, Y, and Z. But this week, not only are 59 people coming from South Africa, we went and got them, chartered a flight, paid for by the United States government to get them and bring them back. What do we have here? What's this?
It's giving DEI program.
Is this DEI or is that reverse DEI?
No, it's DEI.
It's just DEI.
Yeah. They're African. It's DEI.
Okay.
No, I think that there are no Democrats that should be speaking against this, the way in which they embolden Biden to bust open our border like a bag of chips and allow for millions of illegal immigrants to come over. I can't see any of them having an issue with 59 people.
With us sending a plane to go pick them up.
Yeah, well,
I thought we were cutting costs.
Okay.
Well,
I thought we didn't have the resources.
Well, apparently we do.
Okay.
And apparently we're getting a new plane from a foreign nation.
Yeah, from
okay,
Qatar.
so
a $400 million plane.
Everyone's tricking on America, but it does look bad, in my opinion, when we are talking about the sovereignty of our nation and we're talking about not letting refugees in. I think we booted out some Ukrainians as well. along with those from Guatemala and Mexico and Nicaragua and Venezuela, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go roll out the red carpet for the 59. Now, if those 59 would have paid for that platinum card that Trump was talking about, that $5 million each, then it makes more sense. But I do think there is a credibility gap in what was being said versus what is being done. I have a strong suspicion that it is our African American brother Elon Musk that had a lot to do with this, because he has been consistently advocating for the Afrikaans with the K to come over here. And so I do think there's a credibility gap. It's 59 people, so I don't believe that it's going to make
They've promised there's going to be more, though.
A big change. So that's what I was about to say. But if you continue this behavior of importing people, it's going to begin to look like you're importing them because they have the complexion of protection, and that those that are more melanated cannot. So the 59, okay, we see you. But if you're continuing this while saying that we don't need to import skilled laborers, we don't need to be giving visas or TPS status to people, but then you're chartering flights for specific groups of people, it would definitely look like you're playing into that great replacement conversation.
Sam, where you at?
When I first seen this, one of the first things I thought of was a conversation that we had a long time ago when we were talking about abortion. And we were talking about how white babies were being aborted at a level that would put white people, right, and not just babies, but including our immigration and all of that stuff, white people were going to be in the minority, right? And when I saw this, that was one of the first things that came to my mind, because, like, okay, no, we're not against refugees. We're against Black and brown refugees. And we're for making sure, we keep white folks in power and in majority. And that was, especially as white supremacists, right? Because I don't want to paint this as all white folks are this way. But that's one of the first things that came to mind. It was just
Wait,
like
who
a
are the
gut check.
supremacists? The Afrikaans, or
it was the gut check. Who are the supremacists?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what supremacists are we talking.
The white supremacists here making this possible, right? That's the concern, especially because to be a refugee, you have to be fleeing some kind of like actual danger. And from what we've heard from South Africa, from other international sources, they're not. And so this is why we have something to say. This is why we can critique it. We were taking refugees from places who were actually experiencing things that they needed to get away from.
Come on.
These Afrikaners
all the millions and millions were all fleeing.
Well,
yes, they were all
let's
fleeing.
be honest here.
Yes, they were all fleeing. That's one. Two, it's just it's continued hypocrisy from Trump that we consistently see. And I haven't heard about the Ukrainian folks being deported, but if they were, I mean, that's just because they're his enemy. I think he can be both racist and childish. I think the catering to him that you see internationally is not a respect. It's a much like what a parent would do with a 5-year-old, or let's say a 3-year-old that's throwing a fit in the mall, and it's reluctant. It's easier to give them candy and just say shh, shh, and get through whatever you got to get through, rather than actually correcting their behavior in the moment. And I think a lot of people internationally are feeling the same way about Trump. Like, listen, we can't even begin to go down this route. We know that if we stroke his ego, give him some candy, and tell him how great he is, he'll be easier to work with.
So
and
South Africa is giving him candy by giving him 59.
That's what he's doing. No. I'm saying internationally, that's the kind of stuff we're seeing, because you were talking about like Qatar giving him the plane and like all of this stuff. I'm just saying internationally, that's the stuff that we're seeing. But with this, the South African stuff, obviously, I don't know. It seems like there's too much of a connection with like Elon being South African and all of this stuff. But I don't buy any of it. I think at the end of the day, we got to call it what it is. You're not against refugees. You're against Black and brown refugees. And why?
And just to be clear, Trump signed an executive order on January 20th saying that the United States lacks the ability to absorb large numbers of migrants migrants in
Large
order.
I knew
numbers.
she was going to pick out
I
large
did too.
numbers.
You got to clock it.
And in particular, refugees into its community in a manner that does not compromise the availability of resources for
Exactly.
Americans, that protects their safety, security, and ensures the appropriate assimilation of refugees. However, they shut it off for everybody. They didn't just say we would do large groups.
Yep.
The executive order didn't say we won't do large groups, we would do small groups. It said, no, we're done.
No,
we're done.
It said large amount.
It said we're done.
Which is
It said
why
we're done with refugees. And
no,
then
it
they're
said
okay with
we
white ones.
cannot
That's
have
what it is.
large amounts, which is why the 59 number is important. Once again, like I said,
It's
he
not.
Depends
cannot.
on 59. I mean, if 59 people show up at your house, is
59
that a small
over
number or a
the
large number?
millions that Biden
59 is a
let
lot.
in is completely different. And
59
it
is a
is
lot.
apples to oranges, and I don't want to make it seem
Yeah.
like the white South Africans are not going through any type of turmoil,
No, I'm not
especially
saying
with
that.
South Africa being one of the most, violent countries, specifically those that are part of the 7% of white Africans that own over 70% of the land.
Hold on, say that part again.
Yeah, there's 7% of the population of South Africa.
Owns.
The white Afrikaans
Uh-huh.
owns over 70%
Okay.
of all the
I
land.
just wanted
So it would be dangerous for the South Africans that are attempting to get their land back. So it would be a combative situation that they would be running from. And there has been, many murders and violence over there when it comes to territorial rights.
Mhm.
But what I will say is 59, okay, but consistently doing this, it's not going to fly. And if you are a conservative Republican and do believe in the sovereignty of this nation and the current crisis that we have, immigration crisis, then you too will be on this same vein.
All right, we're just about out of time. Lastly, we've had some visitors come to Indiana recently. Dr. Oz was not on TV, but was here alongside RFK Jr., where they wanted to make the Make Indiana Healthy Again plan.
Mhm.
The latest with RFK here is one, he just said he was giving his advice and what he wanted to see because they want to reduce Medicaid costs and different things like that here in Indiana. And he just said people shouldn't take medical advice from me,
From our health secretary.
from the health secretary, who made headlines this week because he and his grandkids in water in Rock Creek in Washington, D.C. that you are not supposed to get in.
With sewage.
That is because it is contaminated because of DC's aging sewer system. There's lots of bacteria contamination in DC's Rock Creek, but he got in it, and he also took his grandkids and they took pictures and posted it to his social media page. But this is also the guy who is the health secretary who also just said you shouldn't take your medical advice from me. But no fluoride in the water, though. He doesn't want fluoride in the water, but Rock Creek water,
E. coli is okay.
it's a-okay. Your thoughts?
Defend it. Oh, defend
Me?
it.
Yeah,
Look,
Defend
my
it.
grandpa wouldn't do it. I mean, we're not even getting in the White River. We ain't getting in the Cricket Creek. So I'm not. Are we surprised that RFK was getting in the Rock Creek with his grandkids? No. Did we see RFK jump off the side of into another body of water that looked very questionable and shady? Absolutely. Am I surprised? Absolutely not. If he gets E. coli or anything else crawling up in that water and him and his grandkids, at least he's the health secretary and is going to be able to have the best doctors and the best team to help keep them healthy.
So
Would
much
I
for
do
those
it? No.
Medicaid costs.
Should you do it? That's for you to decide. But I'm not surprised that they was in the creek having a good time. You see stuff like that in DC. Take
Sam,
it from me.
Speaks to it. Just obviously it speaks to all of the flawed judgment that he has. Okay, especially to then put this person as health secretary is absolutely insane. He's absolutely insane. The fact that he's doing this and that he's the health secretary is absolutely insane. And it just shows you, even furthermore, if all the other actions haven't shown you, that he should not be in this position. He should not be making decisions that impact Americans' health. He can't even make decisions that impact his health in a positive or intellectual way.
Has it been a negative impact for him?
what been in there? Swimming around
Jumping
in
in the
E.
creek.
coli?
I'm
We don't
just
know
saying.
yet.
I think we need time.
We
I
don't
think
know
he was
yet.
just
What?
in there.
He didn't get any necrosis, no flesh-eating bacteria or
We
diseases.
don't know yet.
Let's be honest. They loved
When was he in
RFK
there?
when he was a
When
Democrat.
was he in the creek?
Now
This
that
was
he's in the
May 11th.
administration,
What's the
they don't like
incubation
him.
period? We don't know.
This
It ain't even been.
this
It was
in
on
the
Mother's
last-
Day.
Yeah, this was in the last
So
week.
we don't even know.
Flesh-eating bacteria is immediate. It's right away.
Okay.
It
There's
could
a lot
happen.
of other bacteria that
Are
take
you
a little
wishing
time.
RFK gets sick
No,
to
I'm
prove
not.
your okay? So
I
they
wish
got in the
no
water.
ill
Nothing has
on
happened yet.
anybody.
The truth is, the Democrats liked RFK. Obama was vetting him for positions in his administration, and now that he's on the right, on the other side,
No, he didn't make it through the vetting because of this.
no, that's not what happened. Everything that he does is being looked at under a microscope. Let that man
Under a microscope. He needs to
Let
look at that
that-
water he's swimming in under a
let
microscope.
that man swim
That's
wherever he and
disgusting.
his grandkids
That
go to.
is
It's very Appalachia of
disgusting.
him.
Oh my God.
Let him swim in that creek.
Mm-mm.
Let
I
him
would
do-
add, but we are just about out of time.
Mm-mm.
We should do this more often, but you guys are always in different places. Whitley's on TV and at
Okay.
News Nation and
The mover and
Meet the
shaker.
Press, MSNBC. Where haven't you been yet?
You know where I would like to go? The Breakfast Club.
Breakfast
So
Club.
Oh,
let's
okay.
clock that.
Okay.
I would like to do the prime time with Abby Phillips as
Okay.
well.
There's nothing but arguing on
And-
that show, but go for it.
Yeah, that's why I think I would be great.
Mhm.
Those are two places that are on my bucket list, and then my ultimate place is The View, of course.
Okay. Okay. Who you want to argue with on The View? Whoopi
I'm giving it
Oh, Lord.
or Sam?
Anna Navarro, Sunny
I was gonna say
Hostin.
Sunny
You
and
know,
you would be
Whoopi,
interesting.
she don't necessarily be arguing. She just be wrong. So
I was gonna say you and Sunny would be interesting. I
yeah,
think.
it would be very entertaining.
Sam, you've got a podcast.
Yeah,
You got a show.
I do.
Shout it out.
I do. The Black Briefing podcast. It's a monthly, almost, we're getting a little more frequent now,
Mhm.
but we just talk about Black Indianapolis, Black Indiana, things that impact you on a political level mostly, but even at a community level. I do it with Wild Style Pachelle and Greg Merriweather, who are just two Black men in the city who I love and I appreciate their perspective. And so having them on the podcast doing this with them is great. You can find it if you go to @PowerToThePolls on YouTube. And yeah, definitely check us out. I think I want to mention too, again, that next week we'll be having our PC training. So just trying to raise up new leadership for our party, building a good foundation, a solid foundation that we can continue to build on and move folks that are, just great community organizers up to the ranks, because I think we need that. And so definitely look out at my social media, Samantha Douglas on Facebook, LHL_Sam on Instagram, and you can see the flyers for that information.
And Whitley, what's your social media?
you don't want to follow me on social media.
Oh, but you do.
At Whitley J Yates on all platforms.
Somebody commented. I got on the last shows, people love Sam and they love Whitley. I know because it's in my mentions.
Oh, good.
That is going to do it for this edition of Fox 59 tonight. I'm Cameron Ridle. We'll have more conversations tomorrow night at 8 and then Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on the radio on 106.7 WTLC and Hot 100.9. We'll talk there for open lines. For now, I'm Cameron Ridle. Have a good night.